Do you ever feel like you are your own worst critic, especially when it comes to money? Well, a lot of women actually do. 59% of women say that they worry about money at least once a week. And 43% said that they worry about money at least once a day. That is a lot of worrying. Women, in my experience, in my opinion, do tend to worry about money more than men in general. Men tend to think that they're going to take some action or do something different. Women do take action, but they worry that they're taking the wrong action a lot of times. And so why does that happen? Why do we do this to ourselves? And what can we do to maybe change our ways so we're not having to worry so much? That is the subject of today's video. If that sounds interesting to you, stick around. And for all of those who are new, welcome. I'm Lisa. I'm a financial advisor. I've been around the block for 14 years. I've been doing this, and I help people get to financial freedom as quickly as possible. I do specialize in working with women, and particularly women who don't have kids, but women in general I work a lot with. And for those of you who have been around here with me, welcome back, and we're happy to have you. All right, so let's get started. So why do women hold themselves to impossible standards, it almost seems like, when it comes to finance? A lot of times I will talk to women, maybe they've hit really good goals, things like that, and they just kind of go, oh yeah, well, I needed to, or it was, I'm behind the 8 ball anyhow, so I should have done this sooner, or, we always tend to make excuses of even good things that happen when it comes to finance. I tend to do this as well, not necessarily with money, but I do this with other things like, oh, well, I should have done that anyhow, so don't give me any credit. And that might just be a female thing. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know for sure. But I do know when it comes to money, women tend to put some extra pressure on themselves. One of the reasons I feel like is that women believe that they need to be perfect, that there is an ideal standard that you should be having when it comes to money, and I'm not hitting that. And so, society often juggles between perfection and progress, and, we as women juggle a lot of different things. Family, if you do have kids, that's a big responsibility. Hopefully you have somebody helping you, meaning a spouse or somebody else, but it's a lot, and a lot rests on our shoulders. I feel like women in particular put a lot of pressure on other women when it comes to family, motherhood, that kind of thing. And that can be very stressful. And there's this idea, because we're not perfect, we're not good enough. We're not anywhere close to where we should be going. And maybe we're not perfect, but we've definitely made progress, or we're close, and we don't give ourselves credit for that. And so if you wonder what I'm looking at my notes. So, we tend to feel responsible for everything when it comes to the family, including financial well-being. And sometimes that comes in two forms. One is women are very, very concerned about their finances, and so they take the horns and they move forward with it. And I've kind of seen the opposite, where women are so overwhelmed by the whole thing that they just kind of step aside and let their husband or their spouse take care of it. And that's very dangerous in many respects. And I think it's because they can't deal with not being an expert without being perfect in this area. So instead they hand off the reins to somebody else. And I'm not saying your spouse or, your husband or your wife or anybody is being bad or trying to be malicious necessarily, but they're often making choices from their viewpoint of things. And I know I've been married for almost 15 years now. Like, essentially you come at things from different angles, and you need that back and forth and discussion on how to deal with things when it comes to the family, when it comes to finances. And I'm very lucky. I have a husband who wants me to be part of those conversations. He doesn't want to make decisions for the entire family. I know how blessed I am in that. And I think when it comes to couples, a lot of times there are differences of opinion, but we're afraid it's going to cause issues or conflict or arguments, and sometimes it does, right? And so one tends to pull themselves completely out of the picture, which I find very, very bad. And I hate to say it, oftentimes it's the women. And I wish women had more confidence to say, I don't understand that. Could you explain that to me? Because we're not getting that education. Nobody is. And it seems to happen more naturally in men's dialogues than it does in women's. And so they seem like they know more than we do, which I can argue if that's true or not. I have a lot of men who think that they know what they do, but they're wrong. Anyhow, but they don't seem to have the confidence issue that women do. And so we feel like we have to get it 100% right. And I say, look at, it's not like you brought home your test score and you got a 99 and mom says, why didn't you get 100? That's not my mom. She didn't do that. But I'm just saying, it's not that situation. It's, 99 is a great score. 90 is a great score. If you're getting 90, you're doing much better than everybody else when it comes to finance most of the time. So, we really have to fill that confidence gap, which I think is the next thing to discuss. Why do women not feel confident when it comes to money issues? And as I kind of skirted there, men do tend to talk about this more than women do. Men, on the golf course or whatever, they talk about finances more. My husband will tell me stories from his coworkers who've brought up things financially. They talk about homes being paid off and healthcare costs, and they tend to talk about all this stuff. I have never had a conversation with another woman about finances until recently. I have a couple of girlfriends that are very open about talking about it, which I love. I think it's fantastic when we're open and honest about finance, because that's the only way we learn. We learn what other people are doing. We hear somebody else's opinion. We can have a difference of opinion and not just do what they told us to do. But I think that if we can get more conversation going about regular financial, professional, business, if we talked a little bit more about that, and it doesn't mean we can't have conversations about the kids or about, how we're feeling or, how spouse is treating us or whatever, how parents are. We can have those same conversations. But I think that if we could have more of these kind of conversations that the men have a little bit, then we would feel less like there's a gap in our confidence in it, because we would have heard of some things more. It's repetition, right? When I got into this industry, I didn't know anything about anything about finance. And I kept having to relearn things. I got really annoyed because I was like, why doesn't this stick? And it really is about repetition. It's about going through the process, hearing again how it works, and it will click at some point. But if you don't put yourself in that scenario where you're getting the information at all, you're not going to get it the first time, and you could make some mistakes, which leads to the next thing, which is, fear of making mistakes. We don't like making mistakes. I don't like making mistakes. And I don't mean about people's money or anything. I mean in general. I hate making mistakes. I hate it. And I can't be the only female out there that feels that way. I hate making mistakes. I'm like, you should know better. You should, we're human though, and we make mistakes. And I have found, I have a lot of guy friends as well, and I have found that they bounce back from mistakes better than women do. We sit there as women, and I do this too, so this is not a rant against women, because I do this. But we sit there and we talk about everything we did wrong and how we should have done it differently. We think about like what we said, and maybe we shouldn't have said it that way, or did they get a bad impression of us, or any of that kind of stuff. And I have a group of girlfriends now that we're really trying to break that habit of feeling like we have to, like, not censor, I don't mean, be mean to each other or anything, but I want people to feel comfortable enough to say something that they believe and not feel like they've completely triggered the whole group on everything, or that we don't know who they are as people and we think they're XYZ bad stereotype something. And, that happens a lot. And I find myself saying, we understand who you are. We know that you didn't mean it like that. You don't have to apologize for that, because it will keep coming up in the conversation, because the woman, whoever that is in the group, will feel like, they made a mistake. They misspoke. They made a mistake. And it doesn't mean you don't apologize for things, but it also means that we tend to be very critical of ourselves on any kind of mistake. And unfortunately, life is full of choices, and sometimes you make the wrong choice. Sometimes you make a mistake. And it's not shameful, because if we're trying and we're trying new things and we're trying to progress, there's going to be mistakes had. And so we tend to overthink all of our financial decisions to the point that we're not making decisions. And I would say my thing is that I always say, try to make an educated decision, but you got to make a decision. So if that means you put a deadline on something, meaning by the end of the month, I'm going to have decided which estate planning attorney to choose. Or I'm going to have decided, to change, if I'm going to make this change in my investment account, or whatever it is. If you need to put a deadline, then put a deadline to it. But we do need to start actually making choices, and mistakes are going to come with that. And unfortunately, that's life, and that's what we teach our kids, and that's what we teach the young people in our lives. But yet we don't practice that ourselves, and give ourselves some forgiveness. People make mistakes, and you need to learn how to forgive, including yourself. And oftentimes people are really worried that they're going to make catastrophic mistakes. The amount of catastrophic mistakes I hear about are few. There are some that I've heard. So that's out there. So, remembering you're going to second guess decisions, but taking some action helps relieve some of that stress. I try not to get very political on this channel or anything, but there are some unequal experiences out there, meaning women, sometimes will take breaks in their career to have kids, and so they don't save as much. They might not make as much money due to society, or due to, I was reading a really interesting article. I don't know if this is true or not, but I was reading a really interesting article talking about how women, because they don't like confrontation, don't go and ask for raises as much. And that might contribute to the fact that we don't make as much money. That would be interesting, because I know I don't like conflict. I don't like having to raise rates or be hard on somebody when it comes to money. So I can imagine if I had a boss and I had to go in and ask for a raise, I would be probably not very good at it. So I don't see how that would be different for other women. But the biggest thing is that we have these things that, whether it's society, whether it's our own things, whatever it is, women statistically do not make as much money or save as much money as men do. But here's the thing that will really get you thinking about how you should continue to make strides forward with your financial planning. And the main thing is, we live longer than men do, typically. And so we need to save more, and we don't. And that's probably the biggest mistake women make, is they don't save enough to cover those extra years that our partner aren't there. So I just think that it's really, really important to keep that in mind. And so what can we do about this? I would say the one thing, and this sounds very cliche and a little woohoo kind of stuff, but it's being kinder to yourself. We're always sitting there trying to make a decision how to move forward, and yet I often hear stuff like regrets and reflections of mistakes in the past. I wouldn't even say they're mistakes. It's things like just not getting going, or just not doing this or that. And I wouldn't even call those mistakes, those are just not taking action more than anything. Instead of thinking what I didn't do, start thinking I'm learning, I'm improving. And the best way to reinforce those thoughts are to learn and improve. How many financial articles are you reading? How many books are you reading that are out there? I have a friend, I was telling her to read a book, and she did, which I'm shocked. Nobody listens to me about what to read. It was about finance. And she said, and I totally understand this, some of the stuff was really boring and I didn't understand what he was talking about, but some of it was eye-opening. And that's the way you need to go into this, is what is helping you move forward instead of sticking on the points that you don't understand. When you read an article, when you have a discussion, when you have those kind of things, find what is helping you. And then as you learn, you could always go back. She could always go back and read the book and see if it makes more sense the second time. Or maybe those are the pieces she doesn't need. You know, sometimes our brain sorts out the things that we need so that we actually get the point of it. So mistakes are part of the journey, but as long as you're learning and improving and telling yourself you're a learner, you're improving, this is getting better in your lives, it's one of those things that are going to help you in the long run have a better journey when it comes to your finances and feel more secure and be ready for financial independence. So what's one kind of thing that you can say to yourself about your finances today that is positive and that you can build on? That's something to think about to get you into a better thing. And celebrate wins. Women, and myself included, are very bad at celebrating wins. And I do think that we need to take more time to pat ourselves on the back. I have a video about celebrating wins, but this specifically for women, why don't we do that more? We need to celebrate our wins and be proud of ourselves for the things that we're doing right. So with that, acknowledge that there is some self-criticism that you're going to go through, that, money is out there as an area that we tend to avoid, and it's something that we should really embrace and start bringing into our world more. Because there's some statistics out there, I've read this several places, that women are taking over the wealth in the United States in particular. And, if we're in control of the money and we don't know what to do with it, how many people are going to take advantage of that in a bad way? So we need to hold on to our power and make sure that we understand how money works, because that is going to open up a whole world for you of excitement and joy and just living your life to the fullest. And that's what we want. So what areas of your finance are you going to start working on? I'd love to hear that. Feel free to reach out and let me know. And, you're doing better than you think. So give yourself a break. So with that, I hope this helped you get in the right financial mindset. If you're a female out there, made you realize that you are not alone when it comes to worrying about finances, and gave you a couple things to do to push yourself forward. Please let me, reach out with your success stories. I can't wait to hear them. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.